Hey. Hey. I hope you're doing very well. Kind of a different camera angle this time. I thought we'd try it out because they're on these Michael Kors. I don't have very much Michael. No, they're not Michael Kors. Whatever that logo is what kind of boots these are. I'm really not that great at remembering things. Okay. I had these boots on and I really like them. They are the first pair of high-end boot shoes that I bought for the channel, for myself, ever in my lifetime. It was the most I'd ever spent on shoes. So I haven't broken these out in a couple, like probably 2 years. So I was totally redoing my wardrobe closet area, and I bought a new shelf with glass doors for my favorite heels and my favorite purses, and I even have like a picture light shining down on them. Figured to, you know, show them respect. They need to not be in bags in a pile. So it was an organized pile, but I figured it was about time. So I rediscovered these and my love for them. So I thought we could enjoy that. And it is that time of year. We are going to resume a reading from the Halloween tree. I think we're in the point where they're going through different periods of time and seeing how different civilizations celebrated Halloween as they're going through time looking for their friend Pip. So I thought this would be a good time to, oh yes, also I bought a leather shirt because it's a leather shirt and I love it. It is real leather and I can smell it and it's marvelous, and there's road work going on like two streets over, but I wanted to make this video, so fuck it. I figured you would probably forgive me. So we are going to smoke. Still very American Lucky Strikes. I guess they still have these from July. And some s'mores, drink Monster, and hang out. Oh, something else I should add. Sorry. So my New York trip went really well. I had a ton of fun. I went to the Met, which I have always wanted to go to because I was an art major. So ever since I've known what museums are, I've wanted to go to the Met. And it did not disappoint. It was amazing. It was enormous. You could have weeks to spend in it and still see new things and not read every little card. It was just amazing. I went to a comedy club that night, and it was like what was it called? The Fat Black Pussycat or something, which, you know, you can't beat that name. And it had some people that I actually recognized from Comedy Central because I really like watching comedians. I have paint on my pants, ignore it. So that was really cool to see like a dark, authentic comedy club in New York City. And then the next day was went to Central Park. Also the day of the Met, that was really cool. Saw Fifth Avenue, and I bought a counterfeit bag on Fifth Avenue. So I bought it on Fifth Avenue, but not in a legit store. When in Rome, right? When in New York, buy a counterfeit bag from a Jamaican on the street. It's a melting pot. Hey, I like the bag, whatever. I went to the movie premiere of Benedetta, and it was really, really cool. Because it was a great movie. I legitimately really liked it. And Paul Verhoeven wasn't there, so David Burke, which I asked him if it was okay if I finally revealed who he is, the guy I've been working with on my movie project, wrote Benedetta with Paul Verhoeven, and Paul was scared to come to New York City because he's nervous about the Rona, which is totally fair. And so David did the talk before Benedetta, and it was really neat to see someone I know so well up there talking about it, and he did a great job. And then it was also strange to see a movie in a theater type of setting. Like, it had an orchestra area. It was where Juilliard does a lot of their concerts. I guess it's at Juilliard. I don't know, but that was neat. And I was wearing my Louboutins and a black dress with black leather shoulders, so it was very me. And then also in true me fashion, whenever we were leaving, I got the heel of my Louboutin stuck in the revolving, like the grate where there was a revolving door and there was a grate, and that was the only way you could leave. So I walked on the grate in those heels, and the heel just went right into the grate, and the door kept turning, and I was like, fuck, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die for these Louboutins, because I'm not taking the shoe off and leaving it here. So I'm just gonna break my life to save this shoe. And I was really ladylike in this dress, like pushed my body against the door so it wouldn't keep turning, and like everyone else in the revolving door were like, whoa. And so I pulled it out and then scampered off as much as I can scamper in heels, and crisis averted. But it was fun, and when I came home, lots of various things happened. I'm sure I'll mention them in other times, but obviously the meetup was great, and I loved meeting everyone who came, but it was cool seeing a portion of the channel, and it was really laid back, and I got to share cigarettes with some channel people, which was awesome. And I got to meet people who had been talking on the channel for a long time, so that was very, very neat. And it was a small meetup, but that was perfect, because then I got to talk to everybody a lot and really get to know people. So it was really, really cool. It makes me very excited to have more of them. I think our England one is going to be a good size, since so many of you guys are British, so that'll be awesome. But that's all I can think of right now. I'll think of more. Halloween tree. And I still have my Sequest dolphin bookmark from where we left off last year. I used to watch that when I was little. Okay. Now we get to deal with how I pronounce these names again. Again, I'm dyslexic. You're watching a video of a dyslexic person reading a book out loud. Just remember that when things happen, because they will. Sam, start off good. Start off, hit the ground running. Samhan, seethed up, uplifted, gazed all about, happy at his gaze. He chuckled a most delicious chuckle, spat fiery spittle on his horny hands, clinched the scythe tighter, swung it up, and froze, for somewhere someone was singing. Somewhere near the top of the hill, in a small clump of trees, a small bonfire flickered. Men, like shadows, were gathered there, lifting up their arms and chanting. Samhan listened, his scythe like a great smile in his arms. O Samhan, God of the dead, hear us. We, the holy druid priests in the grove of trees, the great oaks, plead for the souls of the dead. Far away, these strange men, by their bright fire, lifted metal knives, lifted cats and goats in their hands, chanting, we pray for the souls of those who are turned to beasts. O God of the dead, we sacrifice these beasts so that you will let free the souls of our loved ones who died this year. Knives flashed. Samhan smiled an even greater smile. The animals shrieked. All around the boys on the earth, the grass, the rocks, the trapped souls lost in spiders, locked in roaches, put away in fleas and pill bugs and centipedes, gaped and yammered, silent yammers, and twitched and rolled. Tom winced. He thought he heard a million small, very microscopic beasts, bleats of pain and release from him, from all around him, where the centipedes capered, spiders danced. Let free, let be, prayed the druids on the hill. The fire blazed. The sea wind roared over the meadows, God damn it, brushed the rocks, touched at the spiders, rolled the pill bugs. I guess pill bugs are roly-polies. Tumbled the roaches, the tiny spiders, insects, and miniature dogs and cows fluffed away like a million snowflakes, and the tiny souls trapped in insect bodies dissolved, released with a vast cavern whisper. They whistled up to the sky. To heaven, cried the druid priests. O free, go. They flew. They vanished in the air with a great sigh of thanks and much gratitude. Samhan, God of the dead, shrugged and let them go. Then, just as suddenly, he stiffened, as the hidden boys and Mr. Moundshroud crouched in the rocks. Through the valley and across the hill ran an army of Roman soldiers, a troop on the double. Their leader ran before them shouting, soldiers of Rome, destroy the pagans, destroy the unholy religion. Santoninus so orders. First Santoninus. Samhan in the sky raised his scythe, too late. The soldiers slammed swords and axes into the base of the holy druid oaks. Samhan shrieked in pain as if the axes had chopped his knees. The holy trees groaned, whistled, and, with a final chop, thundered to the earth. Samhan tumbled in the high air, trembled in the high air. The druid priests, fleeing, stopped and shuddered. Trees fell. The priest chopped at the ankles. The knees fell. They were blown over like oaks in a hurricane. No, roared Samhan. No! In the high air. But yes, cried the Romans. Now. The soldiers gave a final, mighty blow. And Samhan, God of the dead, torn at his roots, chopped at his ankles, began to fall. The boys, staring up, leapt out of the way, for it was like a giant forest falling all in one fall. They were shadowed by his magnificent descent. Using a Bic with spider webs on it, and I also removed the little cover because the main reason I do not like Bics is because of this cover that, like, if you're trying to hold it to get the flame, it like hurts your thumb, but if you remove it with a knife, it is way better. If you remove the safety feature, it works way better. But don't do that. That was just my opinion. Okay. Samhan hit the earth. He dropped with a roar that shook the bones of the hills and snuffed the holy fires. And with Samhan cut down and dead, the last of the druid oaks fell with him, like wheat cut with a final scythe. His own huge scythe, a vast smile lost in the fields, dissolved into a puddle of silver and sunk into the grass. Silence, a smoldering of fires, a blowing of leaves. Instantly the sun went down. The druid priests bled in the grass, and the boys watched, and the Roman captain prowled the dead fires, kicking the holy ashes. Here we shall build temples to our gods. The soldiers lit new fires and burned incense before golden idols which they sat in place. But no sooner lit than a star shone in the east. On the far desert sands, to camel bells, 3 wise men moved. The Roman soldiers lifted their bronze shields against the glare of the star in the sky. But the shields melted. The Roman idols melted and became shapes of Mary and her son. The soldiers' armor melted, dripped, changed. They were dressed now in garments of priests who sang Latin before yet newer altars. Even as Moundshroud crouched, squinting, weighed the scene and whispered it to his small masked friends. Aye, boys, see, gods following gods. The Romans cut the druids, their oaks, their god of the dead, bang down and put in their own gods, eh? Now the Christians run and cut the Romans down. New altars, boys, new incense, new names. The wind blew the altar candles out. In darkness, Tom cried out. The earth shuddered and spun. Rain drenched them. What's happening, Mr. Moundshroud? Where are we? Moundshroud struck a filthy thumb into the fire and held it up. Why, bless me, boys, it's the Dark Ages. The longest, darkest night ever. Christ long since came and gone in the world, and where's Pipkin? Here, cried a voice from the black sky. I think I'm on a broom. It's taking me away. Hey, me too, said Ralph, and then JJ, and then Heckles, Nibley, and Wally Bab, and all the rest. There was a huge whisper like a gigantic cat stroking its whiskers in the dark. Brooms, muttered Moundshroud, the gathering of the brooms, the October Broom Festival, the annual migration. To where? Asked Tom, calling up, for everyone was making traffic in the air now in whisking shrieks. The broom works, of course. Help, I'm flying, said Henry Hank. Whisk. A broom whistled them away. A great bramfly cat flashed by Tom's cheek. He felt a wooden pole between his legs jump up. Hang on, said Mound Shroud. When attacked by a broom, only one thing to do. Hold on tight. I'm holding, cried Tom, and flew away. The sky was swept clean with brooms. The sky was yelled clean by boys occupying at least 8 of those brooms at once. And what with changing their cries of fear to cries of delight, the boys almost forgot to look or listen for Pipkin, similarly sailed off among island clouds. This way, announced Pipkin. As quick as we can, said Tom Skelton. But Pip, it's awful hard to ride a broomstick, I find. Funny you say that, said Henry Hank. I agree. Everyone agreed, falling off, hanging on, climbing back. There was now such a hustle of brooms as left no room for clouds, and none for mists, and certainly none for fog or boys. There was an immense traffic jam of brooms, as if all Earth's forests gave up their branches in one boom and flung scoring autumn fields, cut clean and throttled tight such cereal grains as made good sweepers, thrashers, beaters, and flew up, flying on brooms. So here came all the backyard wash line prop poles in the world. And here came with them swatches of grass, clumps of weed, brambles of bush, to herd the sheep clouds and cleanse the stars and ride the boys. Said boys, each on their own skinny mount, were deluged with beatings and cuffings of flail and wood. They were punished severely for occupying heaven. They took 100 bruises each, a dozen cuts, and precisely 49 lumps on their tender skulls. Hey, I got a bloody nose, gasped Tom, happily, looking at the red on his fingers. Shucks, cried Pipkin, going into a cloud dry and coming out wet. That's nothing. I got one eye shut, one ear bad, and lost a tooth. Pipkin, cried Tom. Don't keep telling us to meet you, and then we don't know where. Where? In the air, said Pipkin. Cheese, muttered Henry Hank. There's 2,100,000,099,000,000 acres of air wrapped around the world. Which half acre does Pipkin mean? I mean, gasped Pipkin. But a whole bundle of broomsticks banged up. Okay, I don't know this word. Banged up in an Akmodo bow dance, like a shuttle of corn stalks across his flight, or a farmland fence suddenly came antic and in frenzies. I didn't see that word very often. A cloud with a grand fiend face gaped its mouth. It swallowed Pipkin, broom and all, then shut its vapors tight and rumbled with Pipkin indigestion. Kick your way out, Pipkin. Stomp him in the stomach, someone suggested. But nothing kicked out of the cloud, satisfied, sailed on forever's bay toward eternity's dawn, rumulating over its delicious sweet boy dinner. Meet him in the air, Tom snorted. Good grief, talk about horrible directions to nowhere. See even more horrible directions, said Mound Shroud, sailing by on a broom that looked like a wet, angry cat on the end of a mop. Would you see witches, boys, hags, crones, conjure wives, magicians, black magics, demons, devils? Here they be in mobs and riots, boys. Skin your eyeballs. Ew. here's my lighter that I found at Juggalo Fest. Still has a guard on it, which you should not remove. It's really not good for my knife to be doing this. Ever gonna find that? It's so much easier. Every Bic around me loses its guard. And there below, all across Europe, through France and Germany and Spain, on the night roads were indeed clusters and mobs and parades of strange sinners running north, scrambling away from the southern sea. That's it. Jump, run. This way to the night, this way to the dark. Mounshroud swooped low, shouting over the mobs like a general leading a fine, evil troop. Quick ride. Lie low, wait a few centuries. Hide out from what? Whispered Tom. Wondered Tom. Here come the Christians, yelled voices below on the road. And that was the answer. Tom blinked and soared and watched. And from all the roads and mobs, the mobs ran to stand alone on farms or at crossroads to harvest fields in town. Old men, old women, toothless and raving, yelling at the sky as brooms swept down. Why, said Henry Hanks, stunned. Those are witches. Dry clean my soul and hang it out to dry if you're not right, boy, agreed Mounshroud. There are witches jumping fires, said JJ. And witches stirring cauldrons, said Tom. And witches drawing cymbals and farmyard dust, said Ralph. Are they real? I mean, I always thought. Real, said Mounshroud, insulted. Almost fell from his bramble cat broom. Ye little gods and fishes, lad. Every town has its resident witch. I think our resident witch is pork chop. Every town hides some old Greek pagan priest, some Roman worshipper of tiny gods who ran up the roads, hid in the culverts, sank in the caves to escape the Christians. In every tiny village, boy, in every scrubby farm, the old religions hide out. You saw the Druids cut and chopped, eh? They hid from the Romans, and now Romans, who fled from Christians to lions, run themselves to hide. So all the little lollygagging cults, all flavors and types, scramble to survive. See how they run, boys. And it was true. Fires burned all over Europe, at every crossroad and by every haystack. Dark forms jumped in cats across flames. Cauldrons bubbled. Old hags cursed. Dogs frolicked red-hot coals. Witches everywhere, said Tom amazed. I never knew there were so many. Mobs in multitudes, Tom. Europe was flooded to the dikes. Witches underfoot, witches under bed, and in the cellars and high attics. Boy, oh boy, said Henry Hank, proud of his witch costume. Real witches. Did they talk to the dead? No, said Mounshroud. Jump up devils? No. Keep demons in door hinges and squeal them out at midnight? No. Ride broomsticks? Nope. Put sneezing spells on people? Sorry. Kill folks by sticking pins in dolls? No. Well, heck, what could they do? Nothing. Nothing, cried the boys, affronted. Oh, they thought they could, boys. Mounshroud led the team down on their brooms over the farms where witches dropped frogs in cauldrons and stomped toads and stuffed mummy dust and cavorted in cackles. But stop and think, what does the word witch truly mean? Why, said Tom, and was stymied. Wits, said Moundshroud. Intelligence. That's what it all means. Knowledge. So many men or women with half a brain and with inclinations towards learning had his wits about him, eh? And so anyone too smart who didn't watch out was called a witch, said everyone. And with some of the smart ones, the ones with wits, pretended at magic, or dreamed themselves with ghosts and dead shufflers and ambling mummies. And if enemies dropped dead by coincidence, they took credit for it. They liked to believe they had power, but they had none, boys, none. Sad and sorry, 'tis true, but listen. There beyond the hill, that's where brooms come from. That's where they go. The boys listened and heard. The broom work makes the broom that looms on the sky and gloom and raising of the moon, that the broom which, gloom to which, flies high on harvestings of stormwind grass, with shriek and sigh to motion it. In ocean seeds of cloud, now soft, now loud. Below, at full tilt, a witch broom factory was filled with commotions, poles being cut and bound with broom brushes, which no sooner tied, took off up chimneys in flights of spark. On rooftops, hags leapt on to ride to the stars. Or so it seemed as the boys watched the voices sang. Did witches feel the night wind in their bed and reel and dance with devils and the dead? No, but that is what they bragged and claimed and said, until whole continents hell-bent named witches of the innocent and did conspire to burn old women, babes, and virgins in a fire. Mobs raged through villages and farms with torches cursing. Bonfires flared from the English Channel to the Mediterranean shore. Through all of Germany and France, 10,000 so-called evil witches hung to kick their final antic dance. No village but what shared a dread uproar as each side named the other for the devil's pig. Old Satan sow, you don't normally see pigs called sows. The demon's maddened boar. Wild pigs with witches glued to their backs trotted roof tiles, flinting sparks, snorting steams. All Europe was a cloud of witches' smoke. Their judges often bound and burnt them for what? A joke. Until all men are spoiled with guilt, all sin, all lie. So what to do? Why, everyone must die. Smoke churned in the sky. In every crossroads, witches hung, crows gathered in a feathered darkness. The boys hung from their brooms in the sky. Eyes popped, mouths wide. Anyone want to be a witch? Said Moundshroud at last. Said Henry Hank, shivering with his witch's rags. Nuh, not me. No fun, eh, boy? No fun. The brooms flew them off through chars and smokes. They landed on an empty street in an open place in Paris. Their brooms fell over, dead. Your whistle spread. I think I said in the very first video. 1972. Well now, boys, what should we do to scare the scarers, frighten the frighteners, shiver the shiverers, called mound shroud inside a cloud? What's bigger than demons and witches? Bigger gods, bigger witches, bigger churches? Guess Tom Skelton. Bless you, Tom, right. An idea gets big, yes? A religion gets big. How? With buildings large enough to cast shadows across the entire land. Build buildings you can see for 100 miles. Build one so tall and famous it has a hunchback in it, ringing bells. So now, boys, help me build it brick by brick, flying buttresses by flying buttresses. Let's build Notre Dame. Notre Dame, shouted 8 boys. And all the more reason to build Notre Dame because, said Mound Shroud, listen. Bong, a bell tolled in the sky. Bong, help, whispered a voice when the sound had died. Bong, the boys looked up and saw a scaffolding reared up in half a belfry keep upon the moon. At the very top hung a large bronze bell that was tolling now. And from inside the bell, with every crash and bang and bong, a small voice shouted, "Help!" The boys looked at Mound Shroud. Their eyes blazed question. Pipkin? Meet me in the air, thought Tom, and there he is. There, hung upside down over Paris, his head for a knocker, was Pipkin in a bell. Or the shadow ghost or lost spirit of Pipkin anyway. Which is so to say, there was a bell, and when it sounded the hour, why that sound was made up by flesh and blood clapper, which knocked the rim. Pipkin's head banged the bell, bong, and then again, bong. Knock his brains out, gasped Henry Hank. Help, called Pipkin, a shadow in the bell, a ghost chained upside down to strike the quarters in the hours. Fly, cried the boys to their brooms, but their brooms lay dead on the Paris stones. No life in them, mourned Mound Shroud. Juice, sap, and fire all gone. Well now, he rubbed his chin to sparks. How do we get up to help Pipkin with no brooms? You fly, Mr. Mound Shroud. Ah, no, that's not the ticket. You must save him. Always and forever, again and again, this night, until one grand salvation. Wait. Ah, inspiration. We were going to build Notre Dame. Correct. Well then, let us by all means build it. There, and climb our way up to hard-skelled, knock the bell, sound the hour, Pipkin. Hop it, lads, climb those stairs. What stairs? These, here, and here. Bricks fell in place and the boys leapt. As they put a foot up, out, and down, a stair came under it, one stone at a time. Bong, said the bell. Help, said Pipkin. Feet galloping empty air came down to tap, rustle, clomp on a step, another step, and yet another and another, climbing empty space. Help, said Pipkin. Bong again went the hollow bell. So they ran on emptiness, and Mound Shroud, prodding, shoving after. They ran on pure windy light, only to have bricks and stones and mortar shuffle like cards, deal themselves solid, take from beneath their toes and heels. It was like racing up through a cake that built itself layer on stone layer, and the wild bell and sad Pipkin shouting and pleading them on. Our shadow, there it is, said Tom. And indeed the shadow of this cathedral, this splinted Notre Dame, was tossed by moonlight all across France and half of Europe. Up, boys, up. No pause, no rest. Run. Bong. Help. They ran. They began to fall with each step. But again and again and again, the steps came up in place and saved them and ran them taller, so the shadow of the spires loomed tall across rivers and fields to snuff the last witch fires at crossroads. Crones, hags, wise men, demon lovers, 1,000 miles off, snuffed like candles, whiffed to smoke, wailed and sunk to hide as the church leaned, tilted across the heavens. So even as the Romans cut down the druid trees and chopped their god of the dead down to fall, we now with this church, boys, cast such a shadow as to knock all witches off their stilts, and puts ready seedy sorcerers and trite magicians to heal. No more small witch fires, only this great lit candle, Notre Dame. Presto. The boys laughed with delight, for the last step fell in place. They had reached the top, gasping. Notre Dame Cathedral was finished and built. Bong. The last soft hour was struck. The great bronze bell shuddered and hung empty. The boys leaned to peer into its cavernous mouth. There was no clapper inside shaped like Pipkin. Pipkin, they whispered. King echoed in the bell in a small echo. He's there somewhere, up in the air. Meet him's what he promised, and Pipkin falls back on no promises, said Mountainshroud. Look about, boys, find handiwork, eh? Centuries of toil done up in a fast gallop and sneeze, right? But something beside Pipkin's missing. What? Glance up, scan around, eh? The boys peered. They puzzled. Don't the plates look awfully plain, boys? Awful untouched and unornamented? Gargoyles. Everyone turned to look at Wally Babb, who was dressed as a gargoyle for Halloween. His face fairly beamed with revelation. Gargoyles. The place's got no gargoyles. Gargoyles, Mountainshroud uttered and undulated and beautifully ribboned the word with his lizardy tongue. Gargoyles. Shall we put them on, boys? How? Why, I should think we could whistle them in place. Whistle for demons, boys. Whistle for fiends. Give a high, great, tootling blow for beasties and ferocious fanged loomers of the dark. Willie Babb sucked in a great breath. Here's mine, he whistled, all whistled, and the gargoyles, they came running. We'll do one more chapter. I think it's a little chapter. Yeah, it's just 2 pages. The unemployed of all night, midnight Europe shivered in their stone sleep and came awake, which is to say that all the old beasts, all the old tales, all the old nightmares, all the old unused demons put by, and witches left in the lurch, quaked at the call, reared at the whistle, trembled at the summons, and in dust devils of propulsion skimmed down the roads, flitted skies, buckshot through shaken trees, forded streams, swam rivers, pierced clouds, and arrived, which is still to say that all the dead statues and idols and semi-gods and demigods of Europe, laying like dreadful snow, all about, abandoned in ruins, gave a blink and start and came as salamanders on the road, or bats in skies, or dingoes in the brush. They flew, they galloped, they slithered. To the general excitement and amazement and much babbling shout from the fringe of boys leaning out, Moundshroud leaning with them as the mobs of strange beasts came from north, south, east, and west to panic at the gates and wait for whistles. Shall we drop hot boiling lead on them? The boys saw Moundshroud smile. Heck no, said Tom. Hunchback already did that years ago. Well then, no burning lava. Shall we whistle them up? They all whistled. And obedient to summons, the mobs, the flocks, the prides, the crush, the collection, the raving flocks of monsters, beast, vices rampant, virtues gone sour, discarded saints, misguided prides, hollow pomps oozed, slid, suckered, pelted, and ran bold and right up the sides of Notre Dame. And the flood tide of nightmare, and the tidal wave of outcry and shamble, they inundated the cathedral to crust themselves on every pimpon and upthrust stone. So here ran pigs, and there climbed Satan's goats, and yet another wall new devils, which recarved themselves along the way, dropped horns and grew new ones, shaved beards to sprout tendril earthworm mustaches. Sometimes a swarm of only masks and faces scuttled up the walls and took the buttress heights, carried away by an army of crayfish and wobbly, crotchety lobsters. Here came the heads of gorillas, full of sin and teeth, and here came men's heads with sausages in their mouths. Beyond danced the mask of a fool upheld by a spider that knew ballet. So much was going on that Tom said, "My gosh, so much is going on." I appreciate that. And more to come. Here, said Moundshroud. For now that Notre Dame was infested with various beasts and spiderling leers and glooms and masks, why, here come dragons chasing children and whales swallowing Jonahs in chariots chock full of skulls and bones, acrobats and tumblers yanked out of shape by dominions, limped and fell in strange postures to freeze on the roof, all accompanied by pigs with harps, sows with piccolos, and dogs playing bagpipes, so that the music itself helped charm and pull new mobs of grotesques up the walls to be trapped and caught forever in sockets of stone. I think I'll get a bottle of wine tonight, and then I can still have a glass for the live stream tomorrow. That would be good. Because I'm not drinking a whole bottle of wine one night. Oh, shit, where was I? Here an ape plucked a leer. Here floundered a woman with a fish's tail. Now a sphinx flew out of the night, shed its wings, and became a wooden woman and a lion, half and half, settled to snooze away the centuries in the shadow and sound of high bells. Why, what are those? Cried Tom. Moundshroud, leaning over, gave a snort. Why, those are Sin's boys, in nondescripts. There crawls the worm of conscience. They looked to see it crawl. It crawled very fine. Now, whispered Moundshroud softly, settle, slumber, sleep. And the flocks of strange creatures turned about 3 times like evil dogs and lay down. All beasts took root, all grimaces froze to stone, all cries faded. The moon shadowed and lit the gargoyles of Notre Dame. Does it make sense, Tom? Sure, all the old gods, all the old dreams, all the old nightmares, all the old ideas with nothing to do. Out of work, we gave them work, we called them here. And here they will remain for centuries, right? Right. They looked down over the rim. There was a mob of beasts on the east battlement, a crowd of sins on the west, a surge of nightmares on the south, and a fine scuttle of unnamed vices and ill-kept virtues to the north. I, said Tom, proud of his night's work, wouldn't mind living here. The wind crooned in the mouths of the beasts. Their fangs hissed and whistled. Much thanks. I love this picture. It's funny because up close you see all the kids dressed up, and if you look at it from further away, you see the skull in the back of the head. Oh, we stopped on page 100. Probably read 2/3 of it. Yeah, I think these are Tory. No, these are Tory birch. Tory birch. That's what these are. It's always rattling around in there somewhere. Please let me know if you like that we've resumed the book. Maybe we can finish it this year. I don't know. We'll see. This is the 4th part. It's such a perfect day. Such a perfect day for a leather shirt. I think it's like 65 degrees outside. Slightly cold, but I mean, I do have my 2 leather item rule, so I couldn't wear a leather coat. I was going to just wear a leather coat, and then I remembered I just bought this like 2 days ago, so I couldn't resist. too windy to try smoke rings. Although I heard that I blew one correctly in the latex video I made for Patreon. At the end, I took a smoke break and I tried to blow smoke rings because there was no wind, and it worked. Believe me, it worked. So, it gives me hope that we'll have more smoke rings in the future. I did it. That's my word for it. Too windy. Well, thank you for hanging out with me. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you for putting up with my dyslexic reading.